Everyone. Happy International Day of Women in Science. Welcome and thank you for joining us. I am Oluwaseun Ogundele, Seun for short, and with me are Shivani and Arik. And today we're doing this live session in celebration for International Women and Girls Day in Science because, well, around the world, science is not the most representative for us women. Did you know that only 28% of engineering graduates are women? So, our focus today is to talk about our experience as women in STEM, women in science, what has been our challenges, what has been our journey into science, and what are things that, we've experienced that we can give as tips and wisdom for you guys. And yes, let's us begin. I will move on to Shivani for her to introduce herself and then Arik. Hello, Shivani.
Thank you, Sharon. Hi, everyone. I'm Shravani. I'm currently a second year undergraduate at the University of Cambridge. I'm an international student, so my home is in Singapore, and I'm currently studying the natural sciences degree, which I've chosen the modules of evolution and behavior, ecology and conservation, and earth sciences.
Nice. And Arik?
Hi, everyone. My name's Ari Gimara. So I've graduated from Cambridge. I graduated in June of 2021, having studied information and computer engineering. And a bit of background, my family is Egyptian, but I've spent my whole life in Kenya. So yeah, I was also an international student like Shivani. And yeah, throughout my degree, what was it? My first 2 years were general engineering, and then I specialized more into technology and stuff. And yeah, I'm now a software engineer at Cisco, working on systems that run the internet.
Cool. And just to introduce myself, I am a first year PhD student in biochemistry. So I'm currently based at the Addenbrooke site. I work on stem cells, so a lot of wet lab. And I applied as actually a home student for postgrad. And yeah, I mean, before I started a PhD student, I was an RA for a couple of years, and that's been an interesting experience. So before we go into questions, actually, just some housekeeping things for you guys to know. First of all, this is a recorded session, so in case you missed some parts, just know that you can go back later on either the YouTube or the Facebook page to rewatch the whole thing. And also, as questions starts coming in, please will not be answering any questions on how to get into Cambridge. If you do quite ask those questions, we have some people behind the scenes that will lead you to helpful websites. But really, we're trying to kind of address more of the research culture issues in regards to your experience as a woman in science. So if you have any questions that are related to those, pop them in and we're going to answer them. All right, so let's get started. Right. So think about the fields that you're in. So Shivani, you're doing natural sciences. What motivated you to apply for that course and at Cambridge?
Yeah, so this is quite an interesting question because at school, I was a very, very undecided student. I generally just loved school. I loved all of the subjects I was doing, even things like English and like psychology that is not like conventionally associated with like a science student. And I did find it really hard to kind of decide that I want to study science. But I think as I got to a higher level at school, so like by my last 2 years in school, I guess I kind of started narrowing down what I didn't want to study for the next 2 years in terms of like a university degree. And I just decided, like, you know what, biology is really cool and like I really enjoy it and like I'm doing fine at school. So let me just do biology. And then I realized that actually I like chemistry as well, and I kind of don't mind physics. So now I'm just in a dilemma because science is so broad. And I think at high school, we just think of physics, chemistry, biology. But somehow throughout my university degree, as I'm like getting further and further, I'm just more and more confused because there's just so much within science. Which is why the natural sciences degree at Cambridge appealed to me because it meant that I could study a mixture of sciences for a bit longer after high school and kind of get into a little deeper understanding of each of these sciences and then perhaps decide, kind of what I'm more inclined towards. And now I've kind of almost dropped molecular biology entirely. So, Shaun, I'm like literally wet labs just like are just not my thing anymore. But I've really come to enjoy geology, which I've never studied before university, and evolution and conservation, which I've also never studied before university. But yeah, it's been a very interesting journey exploring these new disciplines of science with obviously the old same scientific framework and mindset. But yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I am right now.
Great. I'm not going to take offense the fact that I don't like molecular biology because that is my heart. I do so much of molecular biology. But I think I do resonate with some of what you said. I mean, when I was in sixth form, my two favorite subjects were biology and chemistry. I didn't really like physics, sorry. It just made sense for me to do biochemistry in uni. And actually, for me, I guess it might be a bit of naivety, or maybe, the culture that I grew up in, where, I loved science so much. But at that point, the only way I knew to actualize my love for science was to pursue a medical degree. So, like, when I was applying for undergrads, applied to mostly medicine and then, like, one biochemistry. Got through to interviews, but didn't, like, get on a course. I was like, okay, I'll do biochemistry. And I absolutely loved it. The one thing though, and I think that's another barrier maybe for women in science, is the fact that I didn't actually come to realize that, research was a legitimate career option that I could explore until my second year of uni. And I think that's why it's great, when you go on courses that really open up different options for you. In the first year of my uni, I did my undergrad and integrated masters at King's College in London. And in the first year, we had common year one, where you could get a taste of anatomy and by pharmacology and other stuff, and it gives you an opportunity to really explore things that you've not even considered before. And I think that's obviously a testament to what you're experiencing, Shivani. Where the things that you originally found interest in, you've probably maybe fallen out of love with, and now you've established new and new interests. So for me, like, I got to know about molecular biology and research in second year, but I kind of wanted to explore that a bit more. So I did my, placement year, then I did a master's year, then I left uni and then did an RA before I did a PhD, because I was always second guessing, like, oh, should I really do it? Am I good enough for it? Will I actually survive this? So yeah, actually, Arik, what's been your experience into engineering, which, as I understand, is a tougher field?
So, funnily enough, so back in school, I liked the sciences, but I also liked humanities, and I really liked politics. So when I went to my parents and I was like, I want to study politics, they were like, no, what are you going to eat? With all due respect to politics students, but where I'm from, if you study politics, it's hard to get a job. And then, um, I was still good at like math, chemistry, physics, bio. I loved bio so much. I loved physics a lot. And thingamajig, it was just like, okay, why do I want to do politics? Like, I want to implement policies and stuff and change the world. We all want to change the world when we're young. And then I was like, okay, what do I not like about what politics is right now? And for me, it was a lot of politicians say a lot of things, but don't actually enact them. And a lot of the things they claim aren't actually doable. It's like, the stuff you're saying is really not science backed. I don't like this. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do engineering so that it equips me with the skills and the analytical skills and just like the thinking process to be able to hopefully in the future be able to implement policies that are science backed and like, you know, have like more genuine politics. So yeah, I say that, and then I went for my degree. I really struggled with my degree in the beginning just because, like, for my A levels, I didn't have that much support for the maths and physics, which is pretty much the core of engineering. So I came to university and I was like, haha, oh, this is hard. What is this? Um, and thingamajig, it just, yeah, it was quite difficult. But later on, I found what I like in engineering, which is coding. I really like, I never thought that would be my thing because before coming to uni, I didn't know what coding was. I didn't like, I remember in first year when we had like a coding lab, and I was like, oh my God, I can type something and the computer does what is this? Um, and yeah, and also like I really like people, so I never thought I'd like to be in a job where I'm looking at a screen most of the time, but actually it's, software engineering is what I want to do for a while at least. And yeah, actually back when I was in uni, I think it was less than 10% of people in the industry of engineering are women. This was like my first year research, that's ages ago. And it's like, oh, this is quite bad. But yeah, it's yeah. So I like problem solving, and to me, that's engineering. Yeah.
So actually, following up from that, were there any challenges you faced just being, probably very represented by a very small percentage of maybe females in your
Mhm.
cohort? I mean, were there any others in your cohort when you were doing your degree? And how was that? Were there issues that you faced that perhaps your male counterparts did not face? And
Yeah. So like, um, what's it called? In our cohort, there was like 25% women. But first of all, most of my friends within the engineering department, like I have a lot of guy friends, but a lot of them were girls. It almost felt like the girls in engineering converged together because it's like this little support network. There's not many of us here. Um, and I think one thing I always remembered is just like going to lectures, I would sit close to the front and looking back, and it's just like a sea of men. And I'm like, where are the girls? What is happening? And like, definitely, there were some labs where we were using like big boy machines. I was like, oh, but my hands are just like, this was not made for the ergonomics of my hand. I am struggling to pop this rivet. This is really annoying. Why do I need to ask for help? And I think I remember being really frustrated with that. But later, like, you get used to it and you get used to like using rougher machines and stuff. But I think that was something. But kudos to the engineering department. I never felt lesser because I was a woman in engineering. In fact, they really cherished women. Yes, we didn't really have that many like role models in terms of like teachers or professors or whatever who are women in engineering, because there weren't that many in the past who would have progressed. But yeah, I think our department did a good job of it.
that's great to hear. I think it's always good to, hear where that in places where maybe you might feel that, oh, there's this challenge that I need to overcome. When you feel supported, that just makes the experience a lot better. Shivani, how has it been for you as, a woman of color in your cohort? Have you experienced anything, maybe you've not feel represented currently? What's been your experience?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm finding it really interesting to hear insights because I feel like there are quite a few things that differ from undergrad, and as you keep progressing at higher levels and sites, I think the representation, as I think we were talking before this call, just gets a bit worse, honestly speaking. So in my cohort, in terms of like gender inequality, thankfully in my lectures, I don't notice this kind of stark contrast between guys and girls, and it's actually really nice to see, a pretty much equal. Like the lecture theaters look fine in terms of like a visual representation. Having said that, though, as Arik mentioned, when you come to in terms of lecturers and the people who are teaching you, I think it's much more obvious in terms of the certain biases that are there, and I think it definitely does make a difference. So obviously, I think nobody questions this on a daily basis. Like, who's the lecturer who's standing in front of me teaching me these concepts? Who's the ones in the lab that I'm seeing doing these things every day? And who are my supervisors I'm meeting every single week, who I'm just keeping as a role model for knowledge? But how diverse are they, and how much can they relate to like some experiences that I'm going through? So when I see it in terms of that, it's always a surprise when we have a female lecturer, and it's quite sad that it's a surprise, and it is quite sad that it's not a regular like occurrence. It is also very sad that I've not really encountered that many like female lab technicians. But having said that, I have encountered lots of female supervisors, both PhD students and like academics and researchers. So I think even within the sciences, there's a disparity between the disciplines. So I do feel like maybe biological sciences has a more female representation compared to physical sciences and engineering. And I think these are like systemic issues of like math representation between like in within females and everything. But I think this also brings me on to another issue about how, I don't know if you can relate to this, Sean, but before, I remember like my parents' generations and like my grandparents' generations, biology used to be considered a female subject because most biologists weren't good at math. And that was like the primary reason why like many females would kind of choose to do like a biology, it's like an undergrad or something. And I find myself still hearing these kind of misconceptions even now. Like, we know how much coding is like a big part of biology these days. Like literally every biologist pretty much knows how to code or like has some experience with coding. However, the first thing I hear when I mention I do biology is like, oh, you must hate math, or you must not be good at math, or like, oh, you must hate physics. But like, it's just quite sad how like that's the immediate like connection that they make. And yeah, I just want to hear, Sharon, like, what are your thoughts about that? And like, have you experienced something similar like that?
So in honesty, I haven't experienced someone being overtly like communicating that, but I do, completely agree with what you say, where, elements of coding or like analyzing big data it's imperative to the research that you do. I mean, I know that with my PhD project, there's going to be a time where I'm going to have tons of data and I'm going to need to sit down and do like a lot of bioinformatic related things to actually start breaking down what this data is. So yeah, I think maybe I mean I have a slightly like optimistic point of view of like maybe it's just a delay in communication that people don't realize this yet. But yeah, I think I can see though, again with what you've mentioned, Shivani, that there's almost a potential disparity or there's differences in representation of females in different parts of science. I think in the more biological science, they are, more representation. I mean, I have to say, I give a testament to the building I work in that, there's, it's not the highest percentage, but you can identify female PIs. You can identify, there are labs. I listened to a talk yesterday, and in the, acknowledgement slide, like it was a fully female lab. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. So I think we're getting there. And along with what we're talking about, obviously we're talking about our challenges. I really don't want it to come across as, oh, woe is me and it's so bad. But we need to encourage people that actually things are changing. We just need to be a lot more vocal about, these are the experiences that we're having. And, I think along with that, conversations that I've had previously is like when you think about the issues we have or the challenges we have currently, we also need to kind of garner support from our male counterparts, because sometimes, right, for our voices to be elevated, we need to rely on them elevating our voices as well, right? So you can't do like, oh, it's only me in science, but actually we need to have conversations with the people who are currently on the other side of the coin, so that they are also aware of the potential issues or pitfalls or challenges that we're facing, so that it's more of a balanced view. So I'm just gonna move on to some questions that we're getting from our audiences. I hope you guys are enjoying the conversation so far. I do want to just kind of leave another reminder that this conversation is not about applying to Cambridge. Conveniently, Shivani and I have YouTube channels where we share our experiences as females in science. So on the board right now, you can go onto our Instagram and our YouTube pages to check that out. But again, this is not the focus of today's conversation. Now, we got a question from Jennifer saying, what would you recommend to prepare before heading to Cambridge in terms of mindset? I think that's quite an interesting question. So, like mindset-wise, what would you advise for someone who's about to start their Cambridge journey?
Um,
I was just gonna say that, like, for me personally, when I got into Cambridge and I was kind of deciding whether or not to come, I don't know how much this is to do with being female or maybe just being a little underconfident in my own abilities. Maybe it's just a mixture of a lot of things. But I found myself feeling the pressure that I had to be absolutely sure about what I want to do and being so sure about like my plans for life because I'm going to this place that is the basal expectations, or so I thought. And I found myself doubting myself so much because, as I said, I was very undecided. But to be very honest, I was quite good at school and I was good at the things I was doing. It's just I didn't have a clear picture of what my future career would look like. And I feel like this is a problem a lot of people go through. Like, you could love science and still not know exactly which science you love, or like know exactly which lab you want to work in and know exactly which minor, tiny discipline that you want to specialize in. Because as soon as you enter universities, when you realize, as I mentioned, how diverse it is, and you have to give yourself flexibility to explore it, especially if you're coming in not so sure about what you want to do. And I have so many friends who came in being so sure they want to become a physicist and have completely switched track to becoming a geologist, which sounds absurd, but when you think about it, it's really just the basic science disciplines being applied in such various ways to tackle various different sorts of problems. So I think in terms of before heading to Cambridge, try and get yourself out of this pressure to know exactly what you have to do, and just try to be open to exploring and being flexible, and just trying to do well in whatever you are doing without trying to like always think about I have to know what I'm going to do in like the next 6 months of my life, because I feel like there's a higher expectation, especially from like surrounding family members who were like always asking me like, oh, you're going to Cambridge, what are you going to do after? I was just like, I honestly don't know. And like somehow you just feel a little less like valued if you don't have like a plan, I guess. But yeah, there's just like some open thoughts just putting out there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like, I think I'd like to add also the mindset of, because a lot of people who apply to Cambridge or get into Cambridge did really well at school or were really good at what they did at, and just how things work. You were probably top of your class, or like in your peer group, you were quite intelligent. And then you come to Cambridge and everyone's smart. And all of a sudden, your unique identity is not being smart anymore. You feel like you need to have a character. It's like, what do I bring to the table? Everyone's smart. And
Mhm.
like, I really struggled with imposter syndrome when I first joined Cambridge. It's like, who am I? What is my purpose? What is this? So I think just like going in with the mindset that, yes, I'm going to do my best, but it's okay if I'm not the best at what I'm doing, because there's a lot of really good people and there's so many things to do. And it's just like, I don't know. I think I went into Cambridge being like, I really want to be good academically and stuff. And I came out being like, I just wanted to enjoy my time and meet people and enrich my life and experiences through that. Yes, I enjoyed my degree and I worked really hard on that. But university is way more than just your academics. There's all the people you meet, the societies you get involved in. And yeah, I think I would just be like, be open minded about what uni could look like.
Yeah, I completely resonate with what both of you guys have said. I think what I might maybe add to this is kind of with my experience coming into Cambridge, I guess in the Cambridge bubble as a postgrad, although I was in Cambridge as an RA. So I'd already done the whole uni experience. I'd already, and it's funny because like I did my uni undergrad masters in London. So when it came to the way I related with my cohort, I didn't ever question that, oh, should I be here or not, because I felt represented, if not maybe not directly in the lecture, but you leave the lecture room and you see your people on the road, so you're like, okay, this is cool. And then I moved to Cambridge and I was like the only black scientist in the building. That was a shock. And then, as you mentioned, like the imposter syndrome of like, oh, okay, I'm in Cambridge, which is like the best of the best. I need to, meet the standards. No, you need to kind of try as much as you can to be very conscious of kind of breaking down that mindset that yes, you might feel like you have a standard to reach, but everyone is trying to meet that standard, right? So communicate that as well. If it's that you're struggling with certain things, communicate that. So I think those are quite important. Don't kind of feel that you need to be a certain way. And as you mentioned, a week, right? When you are in sixth form, you're probably like one of the smartest. You're in like the fast track courses, and then you come and you're like, hold up, you guys are we're all it can be a big thing to get over, but just be so open, as Shivani has said. Just be so open, and be open to learning, being open to like expanding your mindset. And I think one thing that I would really advise, especially for maybe like postgrads, is as much as you want to like be in the Cambridge bubble, try actively to not go into the Cambridge bubble, because you're more than just a Cambridge student. You are someone who's learning about the world. So you want to expose yourself as much as possible to things that are going on like within Cambridge that is not directly related to your degree. That's a way to kind of graduate as a well-rounded individual, which I think is quite important. Um, and we've got a question from Candy. How did you decide which university degree to pursue? This might have tied in with what you guys have mentioned before, but I think it might be nice to kind of give a more kind of explicit way of how you thought through what degree you wanted to pursue. So, Arik, do you want to go?
Yeah. So I think as a rule of thumb, it's what can you imagine yourself doing for the next 2, 3, 4 years, and you would still love it? Which
Mm,
is quite a big question to answer. Like, it's really hard to be like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. First of all, uni doesn't mean you have to do this for the rest of your life. That's the first thing. Because, like, for engineering, for instance, a lot of engineers go into like banking and investment and politics and consultancy and all the things. And it's just like, first of all, so the pressure of, oh, my uni degree defines my future is like, that's not true. So remove that pressure off yourself and then be like, okay, what do I love doing? And also, what am I good at? Because you might love something, but it's really hard. So it's like, find something that you love and that you can do. Because I don't know, it's because uni is hard, I think. Like, the level of education at uni and the level of commitment and time you're expected to put in to your degree, at least while at Cambridge, was quite high. So it's like you want to not struggle during your degree. And honestly, I would say try avoid external impacts from family or whatever, because it's just, yeah, we know that one. Um, so it's just like ask yourself what you want to do and chat to people, ask your teachers, ask your friends, ask them what they perceive of you, because sometimes our perceptions of ourselves are really bad. Like Shivani was saying, she didn't know how good she was, and it's like those around you and like your network and your support system kind of know you better than you let yourself know yourself. So it's just like ask them, what do you think I could do? Or yeah, that's it for me.
What about you, Shivani?
Yeah, I think I'd like to tackle this question on like two aspects. So one is a more technical aspect of, for instance, the very specific scenario of like if you're applying as an international student, there are differences between how countries approach university education. And as an overarching generalization, the US does tend to cater more at an undergrad level towards like general education courses. So if you're really, really, really unsure about what you want to study at university and you like are really struggling to narrow even like just science as a discipline, like your love science, humanities, everything, and if you have the privilege to go and study in like the US or like any other system that follows a similar American system of teaching, it would be a good idea to kind of explore the universities around you and try to figure out how do they differ in terms of how they teach. If we're talking about the UK, and like Ariga has spoken about this, to try and figure out stuff. And I love how you mentioned about how you're not constrained to one path if you're doing a university degree, because that's something I have to tell myself time and again, like every single day, remind myself that I am not just my university degree. I think it also helps to think about what you don't like and what you don't want to do, because that can sometimes be as useful as figuring out what you want to do. And especially if you have lots of things that you want to do, like me, it was really easy for me to eliminate things I was pretty sure I wouldn't be able to study for the next 3 years. So just a combination of those kind of aspects. And also, I think be open to the possibility that your likes and interests are going to change as you're in university, which is also a very important factor to keep in mind. So as I mentioned, at school, I was only exposed to molecular biology and like DNA and genetics and everything. We barely had anything evolution or conservation related at high school level. And now I'm 2 years into my university degree, which is honestly not that long in the grand scheme of studying. But already my interests have changed so much. Like obviously, I love the base level of biology, being everything built upon the molecular stuff and DNA things. But I'm falling in love with a discipline I've never been exposed to, and it's taken a lot of convincing myself that that is okay. And I didn't come to university with the aim of doing this, but it's okay, and I'm going to go down this path because I'm enjoying it at this moment. So I guess it's a combination of like, don't let yourself be too tied to your future expectation but also your past expectation, and just kind of try and go with the flow and just start off with some place you think you like manage to survive in. And I personally believe you will just get to a point where you like, if you just kind of follow what you enjoy.
Wow, those are excellent answers, and I again resonate with what both of you guys have said. I think what you mentioned, Arik and Shivani, actually is like, think about objectively, what do I like, what I don't like. I mean, for when I was doing my undergrad, that was exactly what I had to do. Like, I don't like physics, so I am not going to put myself through 3 years of that, right? So that was conveniently out of the way, and then I was like, okay, biology and chemistry. Why not biochemistry? And then it was like, okay, that's the next step. For me, when it came to postgrad, it was really about kind of exploring what I really found interesting. Because I think what's so important, I think I say this in context of like people, especially from an African background. I don't know if it's the same for you, where you almost have this pressure of like, okay, you need to follow these paths. But you need to realize that it's you that's going to be doing this degree, right? It's you that's going to be sitting up for the exam. So you need to do the stuff that you like. Don't feel pressured that because, oh, my dad thinks I should do this or my family thinks I should do this, that and I don't fully resonate with it, I'm gonna do it. You're just suffering for no reason, honestly, right? So you want to make sure that what you're doing really is something that you are passionate about, and I say this especially as a PhD student, I absolutely love my project, right? And there are days when experiments don't work, and the fact that I love my project is what gets me out of bed. Right? So you need to know that, okay, this is something that I am passionate about, because that you need that. That's going to be your discipline. That's what's going to motivate you when you don't feel motivated. So I think in regards to like what degrees you want to pursue, let it be something that you're interested in. And as Shivani has mentioned, along with that, don't then like put yourself in a box. Don't be like, okay, well, I came in with this intention to do this, so I must finish it through. No. Be open to just like explore different things and see where your interests take you, because I think that's what life is about, right? Seeing what interests take you and how you can apply it to your real life. Okay, so we're going to round up, and I think actually as my last question, I'm going to ask, what advice would you give to anyone who's thinking about pursuing a career in science? And perhaps maybe we can also put it with the lens of if there are women in science. And we could do on two levels, as a pursuing science in general, if you're a male, woman, whatever you are, and also, from a woman in science perspective. Do you want to go, Arik? Sorry.
Yeah, I'll go. Sorry. So people who want to get into science, I'd say just go for it. Like, I think if you like science, then like, why not do it? I don't know, especially the world is moving more towards like being science focused, and technology is becoming a big thing. Like, biology is evolving and including engineering and coding and stuff. Like, science has become way more integrated, and it's like, find what you love and pursue it and do it. But I think I'd just remind you, science is hard work too. Like, everything is hard work, but like, science was hard. And it's like, yeah, so it's like, if you love it, go for it, but know that you'll just have to work hard. And for women in science, I'd say don't listen to anyone who tells you can't do it, because it's just like, I remember there were people who were like, "Oh, you're applying for Cambridge for engineering? You think you get it?" And I'm like, "Yes, I did, and now I've graduated. Bye bye." And it's just like, yeah. So I think, just, yeah, like, don't let external pressures impact you negatively. Into, if you want to do something, you can do it. Make the path for yourself, and honestly, reach out to people. Like, if there's someone you find really inspiring, ping them a message on like LinkedIn, on their social media, and be like, "Hi, I find you really inspiring. Could we have a chat?" And like, given things are online now, it's so much easier. Try to get into like mentorship relationships with people who inspire you, with older scientists. If you're in school, someone who's in an older year in school. If you're in uni, like, I was helped so much by people who are older than me in uni, or like professors, and me going to them and being like, "Please help. I don't know what I'm doing." And it's like, that's okay. Like, people are lovely, and they really want, like, people want to help. So ask questions and be open to, yeah, be open to that.
What about you, Shivani?
So, I mean, I completely agree with everything Arik just said. In terms of general science, I'd just like to put a caveat here that science is not just something you're going to be studying. It's going to become the way you think. It's going to become your mindset about life. It's going to be, you're literally changing the way of viewing the world without you really knowing. And I think that's really important in the context of you not putting yourself in a box and thinking you're going to stay in a scientific discipline your whole life. Because you could study 3-4 years of an undergrad degree and still switch to a completely different discipline where that scientific mindset is valued, that sort of analytic thinking is valued. So if you're not sure if you want to get into science, but you still really enjoy yourself enjoying problem solving, analytical thinking, mathematical reasoning, the scientific method of producing knowledge, get into it with being okay and having that kind of reassurance that you can always exit the field and still carry on all of these transferable skills with you, which is what I keep trying to tell myself now. Because honestly speaking, at this point in my life, I don't think I want to do a PhD in science, and I don't think I want to do research in science. But in no way does that mean these past 2 years of my life or my next year undergrad is going to be a waste, because I enjoy learning science so much. I absolutely love science, and there are so many disciplines that are on the border of, science and communication, communicating science to the public, where you understand something and you're trying to teach someone about the science who, don't have much scientific knowledge. And this kind of brings me on to my next point about how in high school, we have a very skewed image of what it looks like to have a life in science. So when I was in high school, or like even last year, I used to think the only path that I could go down if I study science was to become a researcher in a lab, which is amazing. It's an amazing career if you enjoy it. And I very early on knew that it's not something that I particularly enjoy. And I was just really scared, to be very honest, because I felt like I committed to this studying this subject where I don't like where the destination point is. And it can be very daunting because there's a lot of information you don't know about people who get into science and what they do after. And now in university, I'm realizing there's so many paths that people go down. As Arik mentioned, so many people who graduate Cambridge do literally nothing related to their subject degree at Cambridge. And I think it's really important to remind yourself that like university is literally just the stepping stone for a lot of things that are going to come after. And in my opinion, there's nothing as like a waste of time. You're going to gain so many skills and resources and connections from doing the things you like and enjoying that. And like, it's all just transferable skills, in my opinion. So if that's the barrier to you pursuing science, in the sense like you don't know what you're going to do with it, or like you don't have a career in mind, or like a path after doing science, honestly, just go for it. Just study science, make those connections, see which what are the parts of science that you like that are not involved in the lab. Maybe it's like, as I mentioned, communication, writing articles, like making documentaries and films and podcasts. Like there's so many things that scientists do, and you don't think of them as conventional scientists. So that to me is something that resonates with me very personally, because I only now am realizing how diverse the scientific field is. And so many scientists go on to become things that are not associated with labs, and that is completely okay and very, very valuable to the world still. So don't let that be your barrier. And yeah, in terms of women in STEM, I think, as Arik said, don't let other people influence what you want to do. I was actually told by a family member who genuinely I know has my best interests at heart, but they told me that, what is the point of studying such a competitive degree? What are you going to do with this? With the mindset of that they wanted me to settle after university, have a family life, and like all this is no point. And this took me by shock because I just couldn't understand how this mindset, like I just couldn't understand it. But then I realized that it is quite a pity that they think that way, because it is just years and years of their mental conditioning that they don't see the value of like women pursuing something that they like. But yeah, you're going to encounter a lot of people who are going to tell you very dodgy things, things that you might be very shocked that they tell you, especially if there's someone like a loved one or someone close to you. But yeah, remember, it is your life and you pursue what you want to pursue.
Wow, amazing answers. And I hope this has been very helpful. I mean, I don't know that I even have any much more to say. You've given such great answers. I think one thing I would say, though, that I really align with what Arik mentioned is, I mean, actually, what you and Arik and Shivani have mentioned is that it's your life. So, really just think about the fact that if this is what I want to do for my life, so regardless of what people are saying, kind of continue going ahead. And what you mentioned, Arik, about reaching out. I think for me, when I was in uni, and I was thinking about, okay, what do I do with my science degree, right? Do I do a PhD or not? It was hard for me actually to find someone that looked like me on the internet, because I mean, we're in a day and age that if you want to know what it's like to do something, you just go on YouTube and say day in the life of this. And like, whenever I did that, I never saw someone who was black and who was female and who was like, dancing around in the lab or whatever. That kind of inspired me. So don't be afraid to be that person. And, through what we're doing, that's what I'm trying to do. So really about reaching out. If you find someone that, really inspires you, reach out, ask them questions. And with that, I'm going to use and plug our channel. Shivani, she has her Instagram and her YouTube page, Sailing with Shivani. Arik has her Instagram page called the underscore Afro underscore Arab. And I also am on Instagram and YouTube by Sharon in Science. And with that, we're going to say our goodbyes. I hope you guys have enjoyed the conversation, and have a lovely day celebrating International Women and Girls Day in Science.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.